Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. Today we're diving into a collection of teachings that might raise an eyebrow at first. Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 26, Hot Baths. You might be thinking, hot baths and modesty, how are those connected?
Well, get ready, because these hadiths offer a fascinating glimpse into the nuances of Islamic etiquette and how seemingly everyday activities can reveal deep insights into broader principles.
It's true. Okay, so for our listeners who are ready to take the plunge with us, Sunan Abu Dawud is one of the 6 major collections of hadiths, which are the sayings and actions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They serve as a guide for Muslims,
Yeah,
alongside the Quran, in navigating various aspects of life.
exactly. And in this specific book, we're going to see how the Prophet, peace be upon him, addressed the etiquette surrounding hot baths, which, remember, were much more common in his time and played a significant role in social life. This seemingly mundane act of bathing becomes a lens through which we can examine the importance of modesty, privacy, and respect in Islam.
All right, so let's get into the first hadith, number 3998. It talks about a shift in the Prophet's stance on hot baths. Initially, he prohibited them altogether, but then later permitted men to enter while wearing lower garments. It's like, wait a minute, what happened there?
What's fascinating here is that the shift highlights the dynamic nature of Islamic jurisprudence. Remember, the Prophet, peace be upon him, wasn't just laying down arbitrary rules. He was guiding a community in a specific context. So his initial prohibition might have been related to pre-Islamic practices of unrestricted nudity in public baths. But as the Muslim community developed its own understanding of modesty, the ruling evolved, demonstrating a balance between maintaining hygiene and upholding core
I
values.
never thought about it like that. It reminds me of how societal norms around public spaces and clothing have changed over time, even in our own lifetime. Things that might have been totally normal a few decades ago are seen completely differently now.
Absolutely. This hadith shows us that Islamic teachings are not static. They can adapt to changing circumstances while staying true to their fundamental principles.
Moving on to Hadith 33999, we hear a really striking statement from Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's about a conversation she had with some women from Syria who mentioned their practice of entering hot baths. And Aisha's response was like, whoa, hold on a minute.
Yes, Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was known for her sharp intellect and her deep understanding of Islamic teachings. In this hadith, she expresses concern and quotes the Prophet, peace be upon him, saying, "If a woman puts off her clothes in a place other than her house, she tears the veil between her and Allah."
Whoa. That image of tearing the veil between oneself and Allah is incredibly powerful. It really underscores how deeply personal and spiritual the concept of modesty is in Islam.
Exactly. Aisha's concern highlights that modesty extends beyond just physical covering. It's about safeguarding one's personal space and honor. And for women in particular, their homes are considered sanctuaries where they can feel secure and protected.
And it's incredible to see Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, taking such an active role in clarifying these principles. It reminds us of the vital role women have always played in Islamic scholarship and teaching.
Absolutely. Her contributions, alongside many other female scholars throughout Islamic history, demonstrate that women have always been at the forefront of understanding and transmitting Islamic knowledge.
All right, let's jump ahead to Hadith 4000. This one takes us beyond Medina and offers a glimpse into the expanding Muslim community. It talks about the conquest of lands where Muslims would encounter hamamat, which refers to hot baths or bathhouses, and lays out specific guidelines for men and women.
Yes, this hadith provides instructions for Muslims entering these new cultural contexts. Men are told not to enter the hammamat except in lower garments, and women are prohibited from entering altogether unless they are sick or in postpartum recovery.
Okay, so there's a clear distinction being made between men and women here. Why do you think that is?
This distinction, if we connect it to the broader framework of Islamic teachings, emphasizes the importance of protecting women's honor and dignity in public spaces, especially in unfamiliar cultural settings. The guidelines reflect a deep concern for their safety and well-being.
So it's not about restricting women, but about recognizing their unique needs and ensuring their protection in potentially vulnerable situations.
Precisely. And this hadith, with its specific guidelines, reminds us of the cultural variations and perceptions of modesty and privacy around the world. What might be considered acceptable in one culture may be viewed differently in another.
That's a really important point. It makes you realize that engaging with these teachings requires a thoughtful consideration of both the universal principles and their application within diverse cultural contexts.
Exactly. It's about understanding the underlying values while being sensitive to the nuances of different cultures.
Now let's delve into Hadith 4001 through 4008. These hadiths offer a more detailed look at modesty in Islam, going beyond just the context of hot baths. What really stands out to me is this repeated emphasis on the concept of ara.
Yes, the concept of aura is central to Islamic modesty. It refers to the parts of the body that must be covered according to Islamic law.
So it's not just about a general idea of modesty, it's about specific guidelines for how to dress and conduct ourselves.
Exactly. These hadiths provide concrete examples of aura in practice. For instance, in Hadith 4001, the Prophet, peace be upon him, reprimands a man washing in a public place without a lower garment. He emphasizes that Allah values modesty and concealment, even in seemingly private acts.
That's interesting. It shows how modesty extends beyond just what others can see. It's about an awareness of Allah's presence in all aspects of our lives.
Absolutely. And then in Hadith 4003, we see the Prophet, peace be upon him, explicitly stating that the thigh is a private part that must be covered. This detail underscores the comprehensiveness of Islamic modesty, extending to parts of the body that might not be considered sensitive in other cultures.
It's like these teachings are challenging us to go beyond our own preconceived notions of modesty and really examine the deeper wisdom behind these guidelines.
Yes. It's about understanding that Islamic modesty isn't just a set of arbitrary rules, but a holistic way of life that's meant to cultivate inner purity, respect for oneself and others, and a heightened awareness of the divine. And this focus on inner purity and respect really comes through as we move on to a crucial aspect of modesty highlighted in the later hadiths, the extension of this principle beyond just our physical actions to encompass our gaze and even our thoughts. It's fascinating how these hadiths delve into the subtle aspects of our being.
It's like they're saying modesty isn't just about outward appearances. It's about cultivating a deep sense of respect and awareness that permeates our entire being.
Precisely. It's about aligning our inner and outer worlds. So, for example, Hadith 4004, while considered weak in its chain of narration, still offers a valuable insight. The Prophet, peace be upon him, advises against looking at the thighs of both the living and the dead.
Even though it's considered a weaker hadith,
Mm.
it still points towards this idea of extending modesty to our gaze. It's like we're being reminded to treat everyone, even those who have passed away, with respect and dignity.
Exactly. It's about cultivating visual modesty,
Yeah.
recognizing that our eyes can be instruments of respect or disrespect, just like our actions.
Then we have Hadith 4006, which delves deeper into the boundaries of permissible exposure. The Prophet, peace be upon him, outlines to whom one can and cannot reveal their private parts. He specifically mentions one's spouse and in the context of his time, those whom one's right hand possesses, referring to slave girls. Of course, we know that slavery is completely incompatible with Islamic teachings today and is condemned in contemporary Islamic thought.
Absolutely. It's crucial to understand that this hadith is rooted in a specific historical context. But what's important for us to grasp is that it emphasizes the need for establishing clear boundaries of intimacy and recognizing the specific relationships in which certain levels of physical exposure are permissible.
And what really struck me about this hadith is the emphasis on maintaining modesty, even when alone. The Prophet, peace be upon him, says, Allah is more entitled than people, that bashfulness should be shown to him. It's like, wow, even when no one is watching.
This statement really elevates the concept of modesty beyond mere social convention, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's saying that true modesty stems from an awareness of Allah's presence in every aspect of our lives.
Yes. It's a call to cultivate inner modesty, a state of heart and mind that values purity, humility, and respect, even in our most private moments.
Then we move on to Hadith 4007, which addresses physical proximity and interactions between individuals of the same gender. The Prophet, peace be upon him, prohibits men from looking at the private parts of other men, and women from looking at the private parts of other women. He also outlines guidelines for sleeping arrangements. It's interesting how specific these guidelines are.
It's important to remember that these hadiths were revealed in a specific cultural context, where these types of situations were more common. What's important for us to glean from these teachings is that they emphasize the overarching principle of maintaining clear boundaries and avoiding any actions that might lead to inappropriate intimacy or compromise modesty.
So it's about recognizing that our interactions, even with those of the same gender, should be governed by respect and a consciousness of appropriate boundaries.
Precisely. These teachings encourage us to be mindful of our actions and interactions in all situations, regardless of who we are with.
And finally, we have Hadith 4008, which reiterates the guidelines regarding physical intimacy between individuals of the same gender, again, emphasizing the importance of safeguarding modesty. What I found interesting here is the exception mentioned in this hadith. that these guidelines don't apply to a child or a father.
That's a really important point. It highlights the sensitivity and nuance within Islamic teachings, recognizing the natural bonds within families and allowing for certain levels of physical closeness within those specific
It's
relationships.
like they're saying, yes, these are the general guidelines, but we also understand that there are special circumstances where those guidelines may not apply.
Exactly. It's a reminder that Islamic teachings are not meant to be rigid or inflexible. They're meant to be applied with wisdom and understanding, taking into account the specific context of each situation.
So, if we look back at all of these hadiths on hot baths, it's amazing how much we can glean from them about the broader Islamic principles of modesty, privacy, and respect. It really makes you think about how even the most seemingly mundane activities can offer profound spiritual insights.
Absolutely. These hadiths remind us that modesty isn't just about outward appearances. It's a way of life. It's about cultivating purity in our thoughts, actions, and interactions. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of ourselves and others.
And in a world where those values are often challenged, these teachings offer a timeless guide for living with integrity and building a society based on respect and ethical conduct. But I think one of the biggest questions that comes up for many of us is, how do we apply these principles of modesty and respect in our modern world, especially with all the challenges we face today? It's a question I'm constantly wrestling with.
That's a great question, and it's one that requires careful consideration, especially in our digital age. With the rise of social media and the constant blurring of lines between our public and private lives, navigating these principles can feel quite complex.
It's like, on the one hand, we want to connect with others and share our experiences, but on the other hand, we also want to uphold these values of modesty and respect. How do we find that balance?
Well, maybe we can start by looking at how we engage with social media. Think about it this way. Before you share something online, a photo, a story, a thought, ask yourself, is this something I would feel comfortable sharing in a public setting? Would it compromise my modesty or the modesty of someone else?
That's a great question to ask. It's like we need to be mindful of the potential impact our online actions can have, both on ourselves and on others.
Exactly. These teachings encourage us to pause and consider the implications of our actions before we hit that share button. And remember, modesty in our online interactions also extends to how we communicate with others.
So it's not just about what we share, but also about how we interact.
Absolutely. We should avoid engaging in gossip, slander, or any form of communication that might harm or disrespect others. Instead, we can use our online platforms to spread positivity, kindness, and understanding.
It's about remembering that our words have power, and we should use them to build others up,
Yeah.
not tear them down.
And just as we need to be mindful of what we share online, we also need to be mindful of what we consume.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the content we expose ourselves to online, the images, the messages, the videos, can have a profound impact on our minds and hearts. If we're constantly bombarded with provocative images or harmful content, it can desensitize us to the importance of modesty and respect.
So it's like we need to be as careful about what we consume online as we are about what we eat or wear.
Exactly. We should actively seek out content that nourishes our souls, expands our knowledge, and inspires us to live more meaningful lives. And we should be willing to disengage from content that is harmful, disrespectful, or simply not conducive to our spiritual and emotional well-being.
I love that. It's about making conscious choices about what we allow into our minds and hearts.
And while this approach to online engagement might seem countercultural in a world that often celebrates oversharing and constant connectivity, it's precisely in this environment that the teachings on modesty offer a path to greater peace, purpose, and authenticity.
I agree. By choosing to engage with the online world in a way that aligns with our values, we create a space for genuine connection, meaningful dialogue, and the cultivation of virtue. And as you said, we contribute to a more respectful and harmonious online world, a world where dignity, empathy, and ethical conduct prevail.
Yes, and it's important to remember that this understanding of modesty isn't limited to the digital realm.
Of course, it extends to every aspect of our lives,
Yes.
from our relationships and families to our professional endeavors and our engagement with the wider community.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the sacredness within ourselves and others and striving to live in a way that honors that sacredness in all our interactions,
So-
choices, and endeavors. So picking up where we left off, let's delve into how these principles of modesty can be practically applied in our daily lives, starting with our relationships. Whether it's our families, friendships, or romantic partnerships, modesty plays a vital role in shaping those dynamics.
That makes sense. It's like the foundation of any healthy relationship is built on respect and understanding boundaries.
Right. Exactly. Within families, for instance, Modesty encourages clear boundaries and respectful communication. It reminds us of the importance of honoring our parents and elders, treating our siblings with kindness and consideration, and maintaining appropriate levels of physical and emotional intimacy.
Yeah, it's about creating a space where everyone feels safe, respected,
Mm.
and valued, regardless of their age or position within the family.
Precisely. And when it comes to friendships, modesty really promotes authenticity and trust. It discourages gossip, backbiting,
Yeah.
and any behavior that might damage the bond between
The
friends.
true friends are those who uplift and support each other, not those who tear each other down.
Absolutely. And in romantic relationships, modesty plays a paramount role.
Yeah.
It guides couples toward building a foundation of respect, trust, and emotional intimacy before engaging in physical intimacy.
It's about recognizing that true intimacy goes beyond the physical and encompasses a deep emotional connection.
Exactly. Modesty encourages couples to prioritize emotional connection, communication, and mutual respect. This creates an environment where love and intimacy can flourish in a healthy and balanced way.
It's beautiful how these principles can guide us in such a personal and intimate part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, shifting gears a bit, how do these teachings apply to our professional lives?
Modesty in the workplace manifests in various ways. It encourages professionalism in both our attire and demeanor, making sure that we present ourselves in a way that reflects respect for ourselves and our colleagues.
So it's about dressing appropriately for the work environment
Wow.
and making sure our behavior is professional and respectful.
Yes, and it goes beyond that. Modesty promotes ethical conduct in our professional dealings, discouraging dishonesty, manipulation, and any actions that might compromise our integrity or the reputation of our organization.
It's about always striving to do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's difficult,
Yeah.
and holding ourselves to the highest ethical standards.
Precisely. And it also encourages treating our colleagues with respect, regardless of their position or background.
That reminds me of how the Prophet, peace be upon him,
Yeah.
always emphasized the importance of treating everyone with kindness and justice.
Exactly. Modesty in the workplace means fostering a culture of inclusivity and collaboration, where everyone feels valued and appreciated for their contributions.
And recognizing that true success isn't about self-promotion, but about working together towards a shared goal.
Absolutely. Now, zooming out even further, let's consider how modesty can guide us in our engagement with the wider community, our neighborhoods, cities, and the world at large.
It's fascinating how these principles can be applied on such a broad scale. How does modesty shape our interactions on that level?
Well, it starts with fostering respect for diversity and understanding different perspectives. We're reminded that we are all part of a larger interconnected web of humanity, and that our actions have ripple effects far beyond ourselves.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and remembering that our choices impact not only ourselves, but also those around us.
Exactly. Modesty encourages us to be mindful of our words and actions, recognizing that we have a responsibility to contribute to the well-being of our communities.
And to actively work towards creating a more just, equitable,
Mhm.
and compassionate world for all.
Absolutely. It inspires us to engage in acts of service and compassion, recognizing that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of others.
It's about extending kindness and empathy to those in need,
Yeah.
regardless of their background,
Yeah.
beliefs,
Yeah.
or circumstances.
Precisely. And ultimately, it all circles back to the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds. Modesty isn't just about outward appearances or following a set of rules. It's about nurturing a spirit of humility, respect, and awareness that touches every aspect of our lives.
It's about recognizing the sacredness within ourselves and others,
Yeah.
and striving to live in a way that honors that sacredness in all our interactions.
Exactly. And this inner transformation, this shift in our hearts and minds, is what ultimately leads to positive change in our relationships,
Yeah.
our communities, and the world at large.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the concept of modesty in Islam, I'm struck by its profound relevance and timelessness. These teachings, rooted in centuries of wisdom, provide us with such a practical and profound guide for navigating the complexities of life.
They really do. These teachings encourage us to move beyond the pursuit of external validation and fleeting pleasures, and instead focus on cultivating genuine inner qualities like humility, kindness, compassion, and integrity. These are the values that truly enrich our lives and make the world a better place.
In a world that often glorifies individualism and self-gratification, these teachings on modesty offer a refreshing alternative, reminding us of the importance of service, connection, and living in alignment with our values.
So as we conclude, I encourage you, our listeners, to reflect on how these principles of modesty can guide you in your own lives. Consider how you can cultivate greater humility, respect, and awareness in your relationships, your work, and your interactions with the world.
Embrace the power of modesty as a source of strength, dignity, and fulfillment. And remember, even small acts of modesty can have a ripple effect, creating a more beautiful and harmonious world for everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration. May these insights inspire and guide you on your path.
And may peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you all.